most restaurant owners can't answer one of the most important questions about the restaurant business. What's your food cost? And if you don't know yours today, don't worry. I own 12 award-winning restaurants, and today I'm breaking down the easy way you are going to lower your food costs and grow your business step by step. From tracking it to negotiating better rates to maximizing the profit of every item on your menu. And we use this same system I'm about to show you across all 12 of my restaurants. And this method has also helped hundreds of other independent owners in the Unsliced restaurant system. Now, rule 1, know your actual food cost. This is the most important part of lowering it, is to know it. If you don't know your actual food cost, you are flying blind. Now, most owners have a general idea, but don't have it dialed in. And this is where it all begins. So, how do you do this? First, you need to know how much each item's recipe build cost is down to the gram. That is a build sheet that you must have of really what each item costs when it's all put together. And certain things are in a recipe, right? Because if you have spaghetti and meatballs, well, there's a meatball mix recipe to then know what a meatball costs along with the spaghetti, along with the marinara. So once you know what the food item's food cost is, you can then price it accordingly. But if you don't know, you can't then say, hey, this is off from our intent. Because if you build it to be 25% food cost and you run 30, then you would know you have a 5% variable from what your intention was. But if you built it all to be, I don't know, whatever kind of works, then you don't even know your starting point. And if you are not then reassessing what is the actual food cost versus the intended food cost weekly, you're screwing up. You can't do this in a rear view 3 months later. So you need to know your intended food cost, what you costed the menu items to be, along with your true food cost. That is how much you spent on food and then how much revenue you got to the restaurant. If you want to do it over a 3-week average to see your rolling food cost, that's going to give you a cash number percentage of what your real food cost is. Not theoretical because you're sitting on so much inventory, your real ass food cost. You need to know that number weekly without fail. And it's as simple as calculating all your invoices and then how much money went into the bank. When it comes to your recipe cards, you need a build card for your staff to use on the line along with the recipe costing card, because a recipe costing card is probably not going to be nearly as effective as a very easy to use functional operational card that just says this many slices of ham as opposed to this many grams of ham on a sandwich. And if you've done your costing by guess up to this point, this is your kick in the butt to say, don't do it that way. Price it out proper. And it takes you a day to do this properly. The day we really calculated our intended food cost and really started dialing in our cash food cost, we saw an immediate 3% drop that week in total food cost, because that which is measured gets done. Number 2, tight portion control with visuals. You gotta have tighter portions and visually be aware of what those tight portions are. Can't be a handful or a skosh or a pinch or a dash. Get those words out of your vernacular. Every portion on the operational card needs to be a tool, a slice, a cup, a finite measurement. Use visual guides, whether it's on a PDF or a chart or something that is very visually accessible to your make line staff. On our line, we have PDFs of every conceivable menu item along with a sticker of the most used items on our make line. Now the sticker, here's a pro tip, get the vehicle wrap sticker on your make line of your most used items and the portions operationally of them. So there's always a fallback for even your most seasoned or least seasoned people to reference. That's worked for us for years, but we realized there still was a discrepancy in our most costliest item at this location, which is mozzarella. And we noticed that anything that's high priced, we need to dial in the portioning even more. So that's why we started to pre-bag the portions for that most expensive item. And we got tons of blowback. That's gonna be way too much work. That's too much prep. What are we gonna just stand here and portion out all day? Yeah. You are. And guess what? It not only significantly cut down that item's cost because there was zero waste, it also made the make line that much faster in a rush because there was no portioning time. It was just boom, 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 boom. Instead of this choke point of measuring this mozzarella item, we removed that. And if you're thinking, well, how much are these little baggies gonna cost? Less than 1/3 of a cent. So Murphy's Law does not play a role when you have made it impossible because you have pre-portioned it and it's just dumped that item. Nothing else could occur. And that leads to clarity. And guess what? Your staff needs clarity. They want to know what exactly right looks like so they could do it that way every time and not be called out for doing it improperly. So let them know exactly by having a build sheet that shows them. 3, engineer a profitable menu. Your menu is a profit path. So once you have your costing sheets and once you have your portioning properly, now we go deeper. We're going to identify that which is a high margin item and that which is a low margin item. We're obviously going to focus attention towards the high margin items. And if it's low margin and there's no way to save it and it doesn't represent us well, it doesn't serve our engineering purpose. The high margin winner that is easy to execute, has solid branding, represents us really well, we're gonna make that super focused on the menu. Big call out, big red box around it. All the DJ Khaled air horns you ever would want to hear in your life need to be directed visually at that box of your high margin item. That's how it should read on your menu. Your servers and all staff should be gearing their messaging towards this item. And if the high margin item that's dope as all hell is also the best thing you make and it's the biggest crowd pleaser, huzzah, now you're in the money business. And if your biggest, most crowd pleasing item isn't your biggest high margin item, make it. Increase the margin, charge more. Because if people love it, they don't buy it because of the value, they buy it because of the experience. So give them that experience and gear your menu towards that. Once you've done that, simplify the menu for everything else. Fewer ingredients mean better food cost, less waste, more power in your hands, and faster prep. Cross-utilization of ingredients is extremely important. When you cross-utilize, you make all of these same food items do more. Look at most Mexican restaurants with beans, cheese, and rice, along with tortillas and all the things that can be done with it. When you see a menu that's 50 items deep, it's about cross-utilization. Now, I'm gonna share a whole video on the best menu strategies for everything you need to do specifically just on your menu very soon. Subscribe here today so you can see that when it comes out. 4, train your staff on waste reduction. Your kitchen line is bound for leakage. You have to train precision before speed. And the key area of that is portion control. Along with that, FIFO, first in, first out. Not a grand or new concept in the game, but are you doing it? Do you have a line of all your FIFO items? Is buttermilk in 6 different locations in the restaurant, and as a result, one of them's going bad? Then you don't have proper FIFO. Are you reducing the items that could be thrown into the trash as like, well, we don't use that item, and finding a way to use it for something else? Have you installed a food waste log where people could write, hey, this is what we had to toss, this is what we had to comp, this is what got burnt, or we donated all this? Anything we don't get money for has to be written on this waste sheet, and people cannot feel bad for writing on it. They need to be, hey, good job writing that we screwed up on something so that we can be aware of it for our food costs so we can reduce it next week. That waste log is going to tell you where your profit is going, and it's very important. Now, 5 is, along with that, to incentivize your team. So when it comes to waste and understanding it, you need to demonstrate this is what this little waste today turns into over a month, and that is this much revenue, guys, to your staff, so they have buy-in with you. And then incentivize them to not be wasteful. You can do this several different ways. Hey, if we don't burn anything tonight, Red Bulls for everyone. If we don't burn anything or toss anything in the next week, or we reduce our total food cost, everyone's getting $100. There's so many different ways to game it so that the staff understand this is what it is to do this right. And now I have my ass in the game with this owner. And as a result, we're all moving towards the goal of reduction of food cost. And I'll tell you this, it is a crap ton easier to reduce food cost when your staff has buy-in on reducing it with you. This builds ownership of the day and their role without pressure. And after 21 years in the game, I've learned the absolute best ways to do this, to keep staff happy, motivated, engaged, loving their job, so you reduce attrition and have incredible food cost. And I have a video on just that I suggest you watch after this one. Number 6, negotiate with vendors in a partner pariah model. First rule of negotiating with vendors is to negotiate with the vendors. And if you haven't done this in a while, do it. And if you don't do it consistently, set a reminder to do it at least quarterly, where you are going to hit up your vendors and say, hey, let's just have a discussion about where we're at, what your goals are, what ours are, and how we can help each other get there together. Now, this doesn't sound like a negotiation the way I just posed it, because it's really not. It's a conversation about goals and to reach both of them in a mutually beneficial way. Now, if that means bulk pricing, vendor rebates, locking in a certain item for an extended period of time, this is what's going to happen when you have that conversation. And if you think, oh, I'm just too busy, I'm on the line, these guys don't do what I needed to do, you are not being an owner. You are being a glorified employee, and that's your problem. problem. You got to get your ass off the line, have these discussions with the people who help you get to food cost so that you can then achieve your goals. And if your vendor doesn't want to play ball, doesn't like you, doesn't respond, or thinks that you're just small potatoes, you got to start interviewing other vendors and make it known to your current vendor, hey, I'm not getting what I need, so I got to at least talk to these other people. Or I'm above 30% food cost, so I am going to take some calls and interviews with this vendor, this vendor, this vendor. And at least that's going to put a little bit of fire behind their ass to do something about it. Because loyalty is great, and I am all for loyalty when they are loyal to your goals as well, because cash flow is king. And if they're messing with your cash flow and not getting you to your goals, you got to make a pivot. Now, I've helped hundreds of restaurants do this by doing these protocols. And I've learned the absolute best way to negotiate with vendors because I've interviewed retired vendors about what things they would have to cave on if a member of Unsliced said it to them, because that's just what moves the needle in the vendor game. And I'll tell you this, it's not give it to me cheaper. That's not how it works. It's these types of things that's going to control what you have on the shelves to be the best possible price. Now, 7 is control your pars. All the things on your shelves, that's your pars. Are you hitting your pars? Are you under ordering, over ordering? And all your inventory, where does it lie? A lot of people get overly confused about the concept of inventory, and they start counting things up and trying to match it on price, and then trying to match it to their invoices. And they might do this in a manner that takes dozens of hours a week. And then they say, hey, it looks like we're high on this. And the staff is like, no, we're not. And then no one believes it. So the goal of inventory has to be knowing what you have on your shelf from a par perspective first. And don't rely on your gut. You got to count every single item and then say, how much should we buy? And know that that's the finite amount when you do it. You need to combine items so that you are doing FIFO along with pars, along with inventory in a cohesive manner. If you have a mountain of product, people will be like, it doesn't matter. A little bit of that, a lot of bit of that, doesn't matter. We got a bunch of that left on the shelf. So you want to have a tight control, not so little that you run out, but not so much that people are frivolous with your product. You should be clearly doing it weekly in a weekly routine, because monthly, January has this many days while February has 28 days. Doesn't make sense. Number 8, track your food cost weekly. Know that percentage. Have your staff know that percentage. Have everyone involved know that percentage. This can't be done by your CPA telling you 3 months later. That is not an appropriate way to measure this. So what is your number today versus last week, and how are we moving the needle towards keeping it low? Based on what you've built your menu to be, you might be shooting for 20% food cost, and you might land at 23%. Okay, is there a reason? Where's the waste? But if you were shooting for 25 and you land at 35, what went awry? How would you know? You need to dial it in. And if you have the knowledge of what your invoices were versus total cash in the bank, you can at least know this number so that you can then start to make inroads against a negative value. But in the end, knowing your food cost is only one aspect of running a successful restaurant. And additionally, every restaurant is super different. So if you want real personalized insight to what you are doing currently today and what could be better about it, be it your numbers, your vendor relations, your food mix, any of those things, then book a restaurant review call so we can deep dive on it with you and see if Unsliced is the thing to get you to that next level. Let's find out where the money is leaking, and then let's fix it. Because if you're ready to take this on aggressively, that all starts with the Unsliced restaurant system. The link is below for you to get that yourself. Thank you, and I will see you on the next one.